Hi, third graders! Today we're going to do our reading lesson talking about a special place for sharing our thoughts. A reading notebook is a very special place where readers can record the books they've read, keep track of the genres they are reading, list the books they would like to read in the future, and prepare for book discussions. It is also the place where readers respond to their reading and track their thinking. So here's my reader's notebook from last year, and as you can see, I made it very special and personal to me by putting pictures on here that meant something to me, and we'll talk about that later. You can also see that I have my reading notebook organized into 4 different sections. My reader's life, interactive read-alouds and mini-lessons, independent reading, and resources. And I'm just going to flip through and kind of show you some of the things. I have a lot of anchor charts that I put in here, some notes that I jotted down. So you are going to have a reader's notebook of your own when you come to the classroom, but we're going to practice what we can do in a reader's notebook. Good readers think deeply about the stories they are reading. They generate thoughts in the forms of questions, connections, reflections, or predictions. As we read, we need to think about the key ideas from the text and our reactions, and then write them down in our reading notebooks. Then we can remember what we were thinking about when we want to discuss our book with someone later. Let's see what kinds of ideas we can write down as we read our books. We can write down something that a book makes you think about, something the book reminds you of, a prediction you have about the book, a prediction you have about the character, a part of the story that you didn't understand or really confused you, something you learned from the book, an idea that you found surprising, shocking, or fascinating, and a question you have and an answer based on what you already know. Those are some examples of things that you could stop and jot in your reading notebook. As we read this year in Reading Workshop, it's so important to remember that reading is thinking. We are always thinking when we are reading. Therefore, when we're reading, we need to be thinking about what we are reading and then writing down our thoughts. Today we're coming back to Joyce Sidman's beautiful poetic narrative, Swirl by Swirl. The first time we read Joyce's book, we read and enjoyed the lyrical poem with its captivating illustrations all about spirals in nature. Today we are going to read some extra facts about spirals in nature that she has included in the back of the book on the end pages. So, a spiral is a shape that curls around a center point. And as I read each paragraph, each section, I am going to stop and jot some things that I think about. Spirals occur over and over in nature because they work so well in so many ways. A spiral is a snuggling shape. Chipmunks, woodchucks, bull snakes, and other animals curl up in spirals when sleeping or hibernating. This shape helps them snuggle into cozy burrows and conserve body heat. So when I read this, I wrote in my reader's notebook that I didn't realize that animals could use their spiral shape to conserve, which means to keep, their body heat when they're hibernating. And then I had a connection. When I'm cold, I curl up and wrap up to keep myself warm too, just like chipmunks, woodchucks, and bull snakes. A spiral is a growing shape. A nautilus forms a sturdy home by curling around itself as it grows, adding to its shell at the outer lip. The tight spirals of a sprouting lady fern are hard like fists as they push up through the soil in spring. Once above ground, they unfold into delicate feathery fronds, just like the picture here. And when I read this, I wrote down that lady fern really is a growing shape, since she is coiled up and strong when she pushes through the ground, But then when she's above ground, she unfolds into light feathery leaves. So this is one that is growing, and in the background, this is one that unfolds its leaves. And a connection I had to that, I never noticed or thought about how plants could be so different before and after they sprout. So you can see here that this one looks a lot different than the grown lady fern. A spiral is a strong shape. When a hedgehog is threatened, it rolls up into such a tight spiral that the only thing showing is its bristly back full of quills. Millipedes use the same trick. They roll into an armored ball. Not only is their shell hard to crack, but a rolled up millipede is harder to swallow than a long, thin one. Land snails can hide safely inside their compact spiral shells. So a hedgehog, a millipede, and a land snail all use their spirals to protect themselves, and their spirals make them strong. So after reading that, I jotted down, how neat and gross is it that a predator would have a harder time eating a swirled up millipede than a long, thin one. So millipedes are really small little worm-looking things, and a predator has a harder time eating it when it's in a spiral than it is if it's stretched out. I wonder who millipedes' predators are. I wonder what eats a millipede. I'm going to have to look that one up because that's a question that I have. So what we are going to do is you can continue reading this on your own. Just pause the video, and your job is to get a sheet of paper and a pencil out. And as we continue reading about spirals, I want you to stop and jot your own thoughts. You can jot a connection, a question, a reflection, or even a prediction about an interesting fact that you have just heard. So I'm going to move to the next page, and I want you to pause the video and read each section. And for every section where there's a star, you're going to stop and jot. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4 stop and jots. Pause the video until you're finished. So now that you've done your stop and jot, I wanted to share some of mine. So after I read paragraph 1, a spiral is beautiful, I wrote, I did not know that spiraling creates a target for pollinators to seek nectar at the flower's center. After reading the paragraph about ocean waves, I wrote, I love watching ocean waves curl as they fall. After reading the part about the whirlpool, I wrote a connection. I used to make whirlpools all the time in my pool when I was a kid. After reading the part about galaxies, I wrote, I wonder why galaxies are spiral shaped. And then after reading spirals are fascinating, I jotted down, wow, spirals really are everywhere. And there's a lot of examples in there of where you can find spirals. Every time we read a text, whether it is nonfiction, poetry, or fiction, it is important to think as we read. To help us remember our ideas for discussion with other readers, we must write them down. And the best place to record our thoughts is in our reading notebook. And when you guys come back to school, we are going to create our reading notebooks so you guys will have that special place to write things down. Our notebooks will become a very special place to store not only our thoughts and information about our reading, but also our reflections about ourselves as readers. I can't wait to read, think, write, and share some wonderful thoughts about books and our reading lives this year. Bye!